With such a disastrous and disappointing season, some people are starting to wonder if Kawhi has already set his mind on another team. And that other team might just be in the same city. What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jamichael, and I'm back here today with another banger. And because I'm giving y'all another banger, if y'all could go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you have anything that you want to talk about, NBA, sports, hip-hop, life, like Twitter-related, anything that you want, we can discuss it on this channel. So go ahead and comment on anything that you would want me to discuss about. But today, we're going to be talking about Kawhi, so let's get into today's video. As this historic 2020 season comes to an end, we learned a lot about a lot of different players. But focusing on today's video, Kawhi and the Clippers were the biggest disappointment of the entire 2020 playoff. For them to have a 3-1 comeback to a young team. See, all other 3-1 leads have been blown to other good teams. Like KD lost his 3-1 lead to Steph. Steph lost his to LeBron. These are all great players. Kawhi blew a 3-1 lead to Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic in the second round. Embarrassing. Because of this, some people have speculated that Kawhi is growing increasingly frustrated with the Clippers and has his eyes set on the Lakers. Now, this doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to begin with, but as the Lakers reveal that they are having their eyes set on a potential superstar free agent in the 2021 free agency, it makes perfect sense for them to try to be an aggressive team and go after all potential free agents, especially with Paul George playing like way off P and the rest of the Clippers not being able to buy a bucket at any given time in an important game or when you need them most. It makes sense that Kawhi might try to opt out of his contract in the 2021 season and look for another team. Now, if you were a fan of the NBA longer than 1 year, then you would know that Kawhi had a strong interest in the Lakers, like strong interest in the Lakers. And it was actually very likely that he was going to become a Laker until Paul George was traded to the Clippers. So in this scenario, we're going to assume that Kawhi has shown strong interest in the Lakers and has decided to opt out of his contract and sign with the Lakers. And we're going to weigh the pros and cons of this scenario. Now, I'll give my opinions on how likely I believe something like this will happen. But for right now, I just want to focus on the pros and cons and how this would impact the NBA overall, because a move like this would definitely make things different going forward. Starting off with our first pro, this is more of like an incentive, more so than a pro. But for Kawhi, just the staying in California and being close to San Diego would be a huge plus because he's from Cali. He loves the Cali area. He wants to stay in California. You know that. That's why he went to LA. So it would also make sense for him to stay. Also because he purchased a $13.3 million mansion in Los Angeles. You know, he probably doesn't want to leave that. He probably wants to stay in LA. That would be a huge incentive for him to go to the Lakers. That's more of an incentive one before we get into the pros. The first pro for Kawhi is that obviously that a move to LA would make them the prohibitive favorites to win the championship. Regardless if Giannis decides to go to Golden State or even the Miami Heat, a move from Kawhi to Los Angeles would not only dismantle the Los Angeles Clippers because they would have to rely on Kawhi, or they would probably have to trade Paul George and just destroy the whole thing. But if you have Kawhi joining the Lakers, the Clippers just got worse and the Lakers just got significantly better because you're going to have a very strong duo of Kawhi and AD. And that's also something that I wanted to move. Another pro for Kawhi is that you necessarily call this a super team? Like, I know LeBron is LeBron, so he's always going to be there. And for the rest of his career, he's always going to be a top 5 player. But can you really say that a year 19, Kawhi and then a prime AD, that's a super team? Can you really say that's a super team? I think that if he were to join the Lakers, they would become the favorites, but you could not call it a super team, or you couldn't call it a situation like Golden State where it was like KD and then like a 73 win team or something like that. I feel like that's a little different. LeBron's older. I still think he'll be great. I still think he'll be extremely effective, especially during the playoffs for them. But I don't think, I don't think he'll receive the amount of slander that a KD would get for going to Golden State than Kawhi would for going to the Lakers. Though some people might still call that a super team just because it's LeBron, or some people would still say it's a weak move, but that's everyone. Now, granted, I'm making this video now, and this is before free agency of 2020 going into the 2021 season has started. So if the Lakers make moves now that might tip their balance, Jared Dudley alluded to the fact that they might be making changes to their roster this year. So if the Lakers do make some changes and they do become significantly better, then maybe we can revisit the super team discussion or whatever. As for right now, as presently constructed with an aging roster, I don't think you could call it a super team with a year 19 LeBron, but we will have to see. Another pro for Kawhi going to the Lakers that he can build upon his legacy. Now, Kawhi has one of the strangest legacies that I've seen in NBA history because it's very odd from his beginning. Kawhi was never expected. Nothing was expected out of Kawhi from the very beginning. He was the 13th pick in the draft. He went to the Spurs, and he never really had offense to his game until, I would say honestly like 4 or 5 years ago. But he came into this league a defensive-minded player and was able to make great contributions, particularly in the 2014 finals against LeBron, as we're talking about. He then didn't like the situation and then moved on to the Toronto Raptors, where in his first year he was able to deliver a championship. I think what he did in the Eastern Conference was very impressive. I don't care what anyone says. I think him locking up Giannis was one of the big moments for the playoffs, and I think that did take him up a tier when he was able to come back 2-0 down from the Milwaukee Bucks to, ultimately win a championship against the Warriors. So everything seems to be going Kawhi's way. Everything seems to be working out. However, once we get to the Clippers, that's a little different. I think Kawhi had much different expectations than what transpired in the playoffs. And considering the fact that they weren't even able to make the Western Conference Finals, and that the Western Conference is about to become significantly better. Denver's going to improve. The Warriors are going to improve. Dallas is going to improve. The Portland Trailblazers might improve. I think they will improve. Anthony Davis is still ascending. He's still getting better. So the Western Conference is going to be getting better. And the East is technically getting better because the Nets are coming back with Kevin Durant. So, but just in the Western Conference, it's stacked. I don't think anyone's, maybe the 1 seed versus even the 8 seed next season might be, decent. Phoenix is going to be better. So I do not believe Kawhi is going to win a championship for the Clippers. I'm sorry. I just don't see him getting past the Golden State Warriors. I don't see them getting past the Lakers. I think, if it comes down to LeBron versus Kawhi, LeBron's going to do his thing. Kawhi is capable of doing his thing as well. But then when we start talking Anthony Davis versus Paul George and then all the supporting cast, that's where, way off Pete starts to become a determining factor. And seeing that in close games, his judgment can be questionable, to say the least. I do not believe the Los Angeles Clippers stand a chance in winning a championship. I don't even believe they'll make the Western Conference Finals next season. I think this was their best year to win, and they blew it. I do not believe next season they will be anywhere near. I think they'll get I think they'll be right where they were this year. They'll get second rounded, but if they prove me wrong, we'll see. But I really don't believe so. And like all other NBA players, Kawhi just wants to win championships. And I believe that if Kawhi starts to look at the Los Angeles Clippers and starts to believe that he has a better chance of winning elsewhere, he will take it. So if he were to join the Lakers, he would absolutely improve his all-time standing. Because winning a championship with one of the most storied franchises of all of sports would absolutely cement your legacy with all the NBA greats, and might move you up in terms of all-time greatness when we start looking at, when we start ranking and start looking at who were the greatest players of the game. Now, this kind of segues into the cons of all of this, which is if Kawhi were to join the Los Angeles Lakers, a whole new set of expectations would be upon him because he would have to win a championship. All-time greats at the Lakers have always won championships. Elgin Baylor is the only Laker legend who was really like in his prime, all-time great player who never won a championship with the Lakers. So if you join the Lakers with Anthony Davis and with a LeBron James who already have a winning culture, so it wouldn't be hard to join or to adapt to their winning ways. But if Kawhi were not able to win a championship, he would join Elgin Baylor as the only players to not win a championship with the Lakers after joining, and that would be a black mark on his resume. Sorry guys, I didn't know if you could hear my Xbox in the background. Sorry. But anyways, if the scenario were to arise that LeBron at year 19 wasn't able to do the same LeBron things, and Anthony Davis needs some help as a second star, Kawhi Leonard needs to step up and hit shots so that they can win a championship. He has to be able to step up and hit those shots. Otherwise, like I said, he could go down with Elgin Baylor as the only Laker to not win a championship, which would be devastating. I think that would make people look at Kawhi a little bit differently. So Kawhi has no excuse not to win a championship. Now moving on to our second con, and this con, which is Kawhi would be joining his fourth team. Now this doesn't really seem like a big deal like at the front, but this would, if Kawhi were to join the Lakers, it would seem more, not necessarily like a super team, but it would seem like Kawhi is now ring chasing. Kawhi is jumping ship at every team that he goes to, and he just wants to win championships, and he doesn't really have a loyalty to any. I can definitely see this going into play. Like I said earlier, I don't know if the super team will really be a thing. That really has to do more so about what LeBron and Anthony Davis do next season. However, people saying that Kawhi would be ring chasing or Kawhi has no loyalty or snake or stuff like that, I feel like that will absolutely be in play if Kawhi were to join the Lakers, or if he were to leave Los Angeles and honestly join any team. If he left and joined Miami, if he left and joined the Golden State Warriors, if Kawhi went anywhere, honest, to another contender, people will sort of rhetoric will be spoken about Kawhi that, he has no loyalty and, he's just jumping from team to team, ready to just try to win a championship for his legacy and stuff. And my final point, I just think it's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch, which the dynamic between LeBron and Kawhi on the same team. Now, I wouldn't say Kawhi and LeBron are unprofessional or they hate each other or anything like that, but I would say they have some mild beef between each other because, Kawhi was taking subtle jabs at LeBron. He said, the New Balance commercial where he said, this is my town, dangling the crown on the keychain, this is my city, stuff like that. He was trying to take over the NBA and particularly LA, and I don't know how much deeper the rivalry between LeBron and Kawhi, but I'm not too sure how much they like each other, how much they get along, stuff like that. So it would be, now I think LeBron is a winner and he wants to win at all costs. So if it means getting along with somebody to win a championship, he's more than willing to do. And I think Kawhi to a certain extent would also be willing to do that. But it would be very interesting at the beginning to see how two guys with two different mindsets who both are, top of their game. And even with Anthony Davis, the dynamic Anthony Davis will have with Kawhi, how does Kawhi fit in with AD? Is Kawhi going to try to, take more shots than AD? Is that going to ruin the dynamic that they already have at the Lakers? There's so many. How Kawhi fits into the system with the Lakers would I feel like become an obstacle to begin with, which, there's always a feeling out process. You have to piece pieces don't just, fit instantly. To see how Kawhi would mesh with how Anthony Davis and LeBron play and the role he'll take on and how well he'll do it will definitely be an interesting topic, especially at the beginning of the season, to see what Kawhi's doing. But in all likelihood, guys, just because egos and just because of how guys are with everything going, I think that it is likely that Kawhi leaves the Los Angeles Clippers, but I do not think it's likely that he will be on the Lakers on the 2021 roster. I just don't think Kawhi wants to play with LeBron, or even he doesn't want to look like he gave up and he joined in. So I think Kawhi will move somewhere else, probably like Toronto, Miami, or the Golden State Warriors, but probably not the Lakers. So I give this a 40% likelihood of happening. Just my opinion, though. 40%. Alrighty, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in. If you listened this far, thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe. That would help me so much. I'm a small channel just trying to make. If you can subscribe, that would be great. If you can hit the like button, that would be great as well. Comment on anything that you would like me to discuss. I will be making plenty of more videos. You will be hearing way more from me, and I can't wait for you guys to tune into my second video and what I have in store for you guys there. Other than that, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day. I'm out.